get right back into it, and what I thought I would do on today's daily, is kind of talk a little bit about Boxy, your question, showing off some gems. So we'll do the daily, and I'll kind of talk about it, and then I'll show you an example of it. This way, we get the daily knocked out, and I get to answer the question. But I also want to talk about this in a little way to help newer players too with a little bit of a foundation, and I might make another video that might go a little bit more into detail, because gemming in Monster Super League is such it's part of the entirety of the game. And unfortunately it's not difficult. It's definitely not difficult, but it is one of those things that it matters. There are several factors that go into not only evaluating the Astromon that you're looking at, but also where they fit at in the game. That boils down to specifically how you would gem them, because how you gem an Astromon for, let's say, PvP is going to be slightly different sometimes, not all the time, but slightly different than what you will do for, let's say, an Astromon that you're just going to be using to clear. With that said, you also have to remember that your Astromon's part of your team, right? So you have 4 Astromon, so that has to fit into that team composition, and it's not all about specifically just saying, hey, this is an attacking Astromon, I'm just going to put attack % gems on them, and there you go, you're good to go. A lot of it does come down to also knowing your team composition. Now, as you see me, I put that out there, but I'm also, again, a casual player, and I want to make sure that's fairly known, right? I know there's always a meta way to do something. There's always, this is the proper way to do this. When we're talking about statistics in games like this, there is always a clear-cut better Astromon than somebody else. There's someone that can hit harder, etc., right? That's what you're always going to run into. However, I don't maximize my team for every little thing, because I also want to have fun with the game. I've played the game for 4 years. I want to make sure, that I'm spreading out the love, so to speak, to all the Astromon I have built up, so they don't just sit in my storage, right? Of course, I have meta Astromon. Of course, I can build them, with the quote-unquote meta build, or put the gems, or trying to maximize stuff, right? And I'm going to, again, I'm going to show off and kind of teach it towards the end of the video, just so we can get through these dailies. But the point still being is, there is definitely a right way and a wrong way to do stuff. However, what I'm getting at is, again, you have to look at the game as a whole to understand where Astromon fit, because there are some Astromon that are 100% more suited to be out, farming extreme, getting you super evolution materials, than necessarily being a PvP Astromon. And unfortunately, too, there are just some Astromon that, no matter how hard you try, are just not good at all. And that goes for some 4 stars, that goes for some 5 stars, right? They're I'm not going to call them useless, but they really are useless. They really serve no purpose in the game. And even looking at it right now, I can tell you with my Dark Jean on the screen here, okay, I don't have her gemmed how she quote-unquote should be properly gemmed. I actually have her, she's a defender. I have all attack % gems on her, and the reason why is I want her to help contribute to the quote-unquote the damage that's going out. And you can see that she's beating out my Dark Miho here by a significant amount just with that attack %. However, when you look at the other two, my Dark Fenrir and my Dark Mona there, she's not holding a candle to those two, and that's just because those are, once again, attackers. If every Astromon could just deal out the damage, we wouldn't need the the difference between a tank, a defender, and an attacker, etc., etc. So just keep that in mind when I talk about, again, gemming and everything. But what I want to hopefully teach here is at the end of the day, what you're going to do is I'm hopefully going to teach you how to evaluate that Astromon, no matter who it is, good or bad. And you'll be able to walk into any scenario with them and say, okay, where does this Astromon fit? How should I gem them? And this way, going forward, you know how to kind of pick out what gems there are. Going from that, though, I want to just make a quick, talk about the differences between gems. Okay, there are two gems. There are flat gems, and there are percent-based gems. Okay, flat gems just give a flat stat increase, meaning they give, plus 500 attack or plus 1000 HP. That is a flat gem. Now, early on, early players out there, 100%, new players just getting into the mid-game, getting over that hump of the mid-game, flat gems are okay for that situation, okay? But as you get towards, your first year in the game, I know that's saying a lot, but getting past, even a year into the game, you're going to be wanting to eventually just transition completely into... you're going to want to transition completely into percent-based gems for the reason of that you want the gain that you get out of having the percent-based gem. That is just what you will eventually do. So at the end of the day, when you see all of the gems I have, all of them are percent-based, okay? And that goes for set bonuses too. I bring that up to talk about set bonuses because there are... tenacity, for instance, and what is another one I can think of off the top of my head? You can see the tenacity gem, just for instance, are a flat bonus. So when we talk about the bonuses as well, you want percent-based bonuses because as you level up your Astromons and they gain, they get to 6 stars, you're going to want the percent base because you're going to get more bang for your buck at the end of the day once you level that gem from 0 to 15. So at the end of the day, you still want to go off of that. So, and that means when you're farming gems, even going out and farming gems in like the golems, for instance, you'll always be wanting to target and sell anything that's a flat and keep that's anything percent based. So when I talk about that flat bonus here, this is the gem of tenacity. This plus 2500 is okay early on, like when you're a very new player to the game. However, later on, this 2500 HP doesn't mean jack diddly squat, unfortunately. And you can see that going through some of the early areas, that's what you have. It's not until you come over here to the magma crags where you start seeing the percent bonus. So this is a good set, right? You see the valor set. This is an attack set. So these all play into how you will gem your Astromon, as well as the gems that you get out of the dragon dungeon are also kind of they're the end game gems. But I will say that even though I use a lot of I use the SP Siphon gem set out of the Dragon Dungeon, that doesn't mean I don't use attack set here for the Valor, and I will kind of show that here as we come to the end here. But in that sense, like I said, let's keep in mind though, when we look at Astromon too, it's not just it's not all said and done when I'm like, it's an attacking Astromon. Oh, okay, so it's immediately a Valor set and all attack percent gems. So let me show you an example of my Hanahime here, because this is a good Astromon to start this conversation off on. Okay, so when I look at any Astromon in the game, this is how I go about it, right? So if I've got Hanahime here with no gems, let's say I have no gems on her, or even trinkets, and trinkets are unfortunately need to be changed. They do add stats, but they are negligible in my opinion, just because these unfortunately do the flat bonuses that you see on here. And again, at these, this is probably the only one that's okay, the crit resistance here. But once again, at level 60 and all that, the stat bonuses here are just so they're so outshined by the gems that you should be putting on this Astromon that these are negligible in my opinion. But that is my opinion, and again, I am not the be all end all, but take my advice as the grain of salt here. But to get back to this, so Hanahime is a tank. What does that mean? Well, that means her HP stat is the highest. That is going to be one of the highest. And you can see this because I can compare this to another tank Astromon Druidess here. And you can see her base at level 60 is 38,000. So again, she's another one that you can tell this is high because we can compare that to a balanced Astromon, and you notice her health is not as high as what a tank would be. Okay, same thing when you're going to look at, let's say, an attacker. Her HP is not as high as a base stat for a tank, okay? But the conversation doesn't end here, okay? So it doesn't go tank and you look at HP and go, okay, so I'm done. It's HP percent. This is not even half the story. So I look at this and say, okay, she's a tank. The next step that you do is go, what are her abilities, though? These are very important into also contributing to the gems that you're going to put on this Astromon. And as it turns out with Hanahime, she has two things that play off of her max HP. This is why I would build, and I did build, for HP percent gems on this Astromon, okay? Is because she will hit harder the more HP she has. And now this is at a cap. Unfortunately, they've capped this at a pretty low spot. You'll notice that this ability doesn't mean she hits for, if you add this total up, this is around 141,000 HP. She does not have an attack value of 141 HP, 141,000 HP. The same thing with this shield. This does not go up to a 141,000 HP shield. It's kind of unfortunate. That would be cool, but that's not how this works. There is an upper limit to how this goes. But that doesn't mean we don't build her for HP, and that is exactly what I've done here. Is all HP percent gems, which give her that ability. Now, let me do this really quick. Sorry, I just needed to clear my throat. So I've also equipped her with the dragon gems, the SP Drain. Now these dragon gems let her build up her active skill here more quickly, which lets me, number one, heal my team and get that shield up. So you'll see me in PvP when I get down to the last couple Astromon and she gets her ability up and I heal with her. You hear me almost laugh every time because it's just like, you try and burn through that shield. Because even the meta Astromons that you do see can't burn through Hanahime's shield at this much HP. However, this is where the differences in opinions kind of come through, and this is something you have to experiment with, okay? You guys have to go out there and go, okay, well, she's also a healer, so this heals. I could change out one of these HP percent gems for, let's say, a recovery percent gem, and that means she would do a little bit more healing, and it would sacrifice just a little bit more on the statistics here on her, how much damage she might do in the shield. But once again, having 141,000 HP, we're already, and I know this from how long I've played and used this Astromon, that I'm already hitting that upper limit. So maybe I could sacrifice the HP here to put more recovery to let her heal more, right? So that is definitely a viable option. However, as you can see here, I'm clearly gone for an HP percent build, okay? And so this all plays into the factor I have here of where she then sits on the team, right? So no matter where she's at, I'm gemming with these SP Drain gems because I want her to be healing more, putting my shield up more, etc., etc. Now that does not mean you can't, again, going off the set bonuses that we talked before, put in the HP percent gem here, right? This is just more HP. She could have over 150, almost 160,000 per health if I throw this 20% on her, right? So at the end of the day, I could definitely, keep pushing her, putting her to her maximum limit as far as building her for the HP, right? But once again, this is where I weigh in that I would much rather have the SP Drain to get her heals off more, to get that shield up more, than sacrificing it just to gain a little bit more HP, right? That plays into my decision. And again, where this Astromon fits into the game, right? She's good in both PvP and PvE, so I use her in both aspects of the game. She still has that, that place. So to give another example, though, I'm going to do two examples here of an Astromon that that again, the conversation doesn't stop at where she is with tank. It comes down to evaluating her as a whole. Is Light Kraken here, okay? It's another tank, so we know first of all she has high HP. But when it comes down to evaluating her skills, you'll notice over here, well, wait a minute, I'm using a crit rate bonus set instead of an HP percent. Again, that comes down to evaluating these skills. And as you can see, critical hits are guaranteed to shock the enemy. Okay, now this is barring resistance, but as long as I push critical hit on her, she will shock whatever Astromon that she hits, right? And again, this can be resisted, so this is kind of the risk-reward of it. However, if you push as much critical strike into this Astromon, you're guaranteed a good crowd controller for, let's say, PvP. Shock can be put on to some bosses in the game, not all of them, and the way 433 has gone, and it's one of my frustrations, is they get rid of the ability to use shock or any stun in the game to, you know, try and build up a different style of team. They just flat out put a resistance to all immunity to all effects, and you're just like, well, that's great, so I just need to come in here with a glass cannon. So but that's a rant for another day. The point being here is critical hits will land a shock. Same thing here. Critical hits will lower the enemy's attack. So I don't have to deal with a percent. I don't have to deal with, well, this has a 50% chance to do something, right? So looking at shock here, if we come back over to my Yuki, for instance, she has only an 80% chance to shock the target. Versus if we look at, you know, Light Kraken, if I crit, this is a guarantee. Right? So we want to push as much critical strike rate. As you can see, I've done that here, to we're at 101% critical strike rate. And these gems aren't perfect. This one is a 6-star crit rate. This one is only a 4-star because I don't have very many good triangle gems of intuitions to utilize for something like this, right? So this is something I could change to make her viable and to try and push up more critical strike on her, right? And then for survivability, because again, excuse me, this is more of a PvP orientated Astromon, in my humble opinion. It is, you know, I want her to survive a little bit. So you can just see what plus 57% HP comes onto here, as well as adding some of these flat with the relics that do add to this for PvP's sake. So this is a great example of a comparison that I want to show you guys, that this is a totally different way to gem this Astromon. Is it the correct way? Maybe, but this is how my interpretation of it, based off of her abilities, what kind of Astromon she is, and where she fits at in the game. That doesn't mean I can't pull Kraken out and swap her gems and just use her for fun out in the field for, once again, trying to do bosses. Again, putting attack down on bosses is a viable strategy for some things, and critical hits lower. I could go deeper into this, but that's not the point here. No, sorry. Let's get this little morning phlegm out. So the last thing I will show you is what you asked about specifically for, let's look at my workhorse, one of my workhorses. And again, I talked about my Dark Gene, right? Here we go. I have nothing but attack percent gems for fun, and this is strictly for fun. This is not necessarily how you would build this Astromon, but I'm just boosting her attack because I like to pull my Dark Gene out and just use her to help farm for Super Evolution materials. Okay. But looking at my Dark Mona, for instance, as one of my workhorses, I've gemmed her for not only a crit rate gem, but also then boosting up her attack. And this is all playing into her abilities. So morale boost just gets her SP generating, and again, I'm using an SP drain here, so I'm helping her build up her active skill as quickly as possible. And you can see Hunter here increases critical hit damage by 40%. So her critical damage, right? This is the modifier after you critically hit. So right now I'm sitting at 150% increased damage done. So as long as my Dark Mona crits, she will do 150% more damage. So translated, she's going to hit like a truck, and that's what we want. So we want to play into your Astromon's strength here, and definitely her strength is that crit damage. So you can see We boost attack percent here, and I have then a 54% attack gem of Siphon for this, and I only need one of these to push her to, yes, 70%. You're like, Leon, this is not 100%. You're right, but once again, I'd like to remind you, I put her in as the whole. She's not one person. This Astromon doesn't go up against things by herself. I add her on top of, let's say, Zephyros here, and I put him in the leadership spot. He'll give her 18% more critical strike rate. So therefore, we're already at 88% chance to crit. That's a high and a good chance to crit. On top of that, I add some of my light Astromons who can give, who with their ability can give allies their SP when attacking. So a couple my light succubus inside the team composition will build up her SP bar quickly. Same thing I could do with light Tina, 10% of allies SP when attacking. So all of this helps work together to help push not only her damage up, but also adds to that critical strike chance to make her shine the way she does. The last couple things I want to point out is, again, I could change some of this stuff on my Astromon, 100%. And that's where I kind of bring up this topic with my Dark Fenrir here. Again, looking at her, yes, she's an attacker. However, she has Stalker on both abilities. She has 50% critical hit rate increased on both abilities. So inherently, she's already sitting at 60% crit rate. And I'm throwing plus 76% chance to crit on top of having, again, let's say Zephyros here to an 18% critical hit rate. That is well over the that's like 150% chance to crit. Now, why would I push that critical rate up that high? You know, why would I waste a gem slot here to put a critical rate on this? Well, because I double using my Fenrir as kind of my hard hitter in PvP. And in PvP, you have critical resistance. Okay, all Astromon have a slight critical resistance rate. So the higher your crit rate is, the more you offset that crit resistance to allow Fenrir here to actually hit, you know, how she can actually hit the enemy team or the Astromon or the boss. It just helps me guarantee it. And this is where it's not an argument, but it is a differences of opinion. Someone will tell me, well, Leon, you can just remove this and just add another attack percent gem. Push this over well over the 10,000 attack on this Astromon. My reason why I don't necessarily care to do that and again, I don't want to come off as, you know, standoffish saying that, but the reason why I don't care to do that is I'm already one-shotting the Astromon that I'm hitting. For any type of farming I want to do, this Fenrir will kill no matter what. So adding more attack to her doesn't make me one-shot them any harder, right? I'm already doing 100% of their health in one hit. I don't need to, you know, go any higher on that. And the only argument and counter argument to that is, well, Leon, for bosses, right? You're not one-shotting the boss. And that is where you're not wrong, right? However, to me, because I use this Astromon and so many other things, I'm not going to unequip and equip and unequip and equip the same gem over and over to change her out every single time I want to do it. This is a blanket build that covers everything in a decent enough fashion that I am content with that, right? So I'm not min-maxing my Fenrir here because I don't have to. Okay, I want to make sure that is very clear, is I don't have to do that. And again, to show off these trinkets, I don't even have these trinkets, you know, maxed out in the sense of they're not perfect, because for what they are, they don't add too much to my Astromon. And once again, I'm using SP Siphon gems here is because I want her getting her active skill up as fast as possible and clearing as much as possible, okay? So at the end of the day, my opinion on trinkets is they are what they are. You got to build what you can. You know, there's nothing you can do about the substats that you get, and that's the last thing I'm going to talk about here. You've heard me cover these gems, and I really haven't pointed out any of these substats adding to, let's say, my crit damage there, or my crit rate being increased by another 13.5% on this gem, okay? You have no control over what substats you get. you have to honestly take what you can get off of this stuff. As much as I want to say, yeah, we can, you have the ability to use this reroll. So let's click on this thing and you see we can change a property. And oh, well, let's see. This one has defense, a little bit HP, but a good resist. I want to change these and re-roll these stats. Of course you could do that, but once again, you're playing into the system here, and the system is that everything in this game is random from what you get. And so if I get a gem that has a decent enough substats, cool. I might swap it out to change on stuff, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, you got to take with what you get. And you can see again, even on some of these, we have flat attack, and I said just get rid of any flat attack. Don't care about these. If you get what you get, take what you get, but make sure you're getting, the statistic up here that you want. Okay. These other ones that are on here are just, unfortunately, like I said, you gotta play with what you got. And this is the gems I have, and they do just fine based off of that. So I know this video was a little bit longer, but it is important to kind of talk about how gemming works. It is not, unfortunately, it is not a little 5-minute video I can say to gem stuff, because I don't want to just say, here's Dark Mona, put these gems on her. Because that's not going to teach you how to do something necessarily for yourself. And it's not me not saying that I don't like answering the questions or even telling you, hey, these are the gems you want to do. This is a more, like I said, I can do this with any Astromon I own. I can literally sit here and go, okay, let me look at, let's look at Froskia here, right? What gems would I put on this Astromon if I was actually going to use them in my team? Once again, here we go. I randomly click a tank, though. It's just that evaluation process that you'll look at this to go, what would be the best, gems to put on them for the situation that you're going to be in, right? So you have to take in the game as a whole to know what is going to be the best way possible. The only thing I wanted to touch on really quickly would be these gems, the gem of the pugilist that you can get out of the dragon's dungeon. You'll see that the set bonus says stun 20%, right? So you would think, hey, this matches the icon on my Wood Victoria here, right? So this must mean that I have a 90% chance to stun on her abilities, right? And the answer is you don't. Unfortunately, this is its own stun chance, and these gems add their own stun chance, meaning this is a 20% chance to stun by itself. This is a 70% chance to stun by itself. So just know that even the pugilist gems out of the dragon dungeon do not add to Astromon's icons that would match this. Even though this says stun, these two are not additive. They do not go up to make it a 90% chance to stun. Anyway, again, I know it was lengthy, but it is important to cover this stuff like that. But thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in tomorrow's daily.